So welcome to the Node.js package maintenance team meeting for, I think it's June 4th, 2024. We'll follow our agenda, which was generated in the repo as issue number 601. Before we get started, I'm going to paste the minutes here. If everyone can add themselves to the minutes, that'd be great. And then we'll ask if there's any announcements people would like to make before we get started. Okay, it does not seem like there's any announcements, so we'll move on to the first issue, which was number 591. This is globally installing NPM should not be recommended way for Mac and Linux. I think that's covered by the proposal that Jeffrey put together in terms of, it covered the suggestion in terms of like the ideal way we think Node and other sort of bootstrap components should be installed, which is to have something else do it. And then the next step was to update the instructions on the website to reflect that. And I assume that updating those instructions will cover like, not globally installing NPM as how that would be done. I think that's, and if I forget
Sorry,
who
one
opened,
question
there's
there,
different
Michael.
context there. Go ahead. Yeah.
The referenced issue, so the issue Matteo made, is he speaking to the NPM docs?
Let's see.
Well, it's just like that's
You
what.
could be right.
So it seems odd, like that this is a node like recommendation for like you don't need to install NPM if you install Node.
Right.
Definitely referencing the NPM docs in the beginning of the issue.
I'm just reading through to see more
It's
context.
just I'm wondering where our scope starts and ends here. So like we can make recommendations about how to use NPM, but if NPM is saying to globally install, and Luke, you might have better context on this. But...
Right. I'm just reading through the context. Like the later context kind of goes into how we deliver Node and install Node and. Right. So one of Jeffrey's comments is, I think this would be closed once the new recommendation is published on the website, which is 598.
Which looks like it's already merged and deployed. Okay.
Yep. And PR open, question mark. I see there's a. Okay,
Here it looks like it was merged.
That one was, I think, closed with the, hey, we've already got things listed in other places. But I think like I can see there's some confusion, but I think my kind of take is like if we update the instructions on the website to say how to do installations, the thought was that would cover this. Now, because I don't think there was any discussion of like, hey, we should go back to NPM and suggest updating documentation.
Well, that's kind of what spurred this initial issue, right? So like I just want to make sure that whatever we're doing addresses Mateo's like feedback, but his feedback is about NPM docs and NPM's recommendations.
The way I hadn't followed this issue closely before this, but it looks like Mateo's saying that the node thing, the node page should give the same instructions as like the npm page gives a number of things, but does say we strongly recommend using a node version manager. And then under the heading of use a node installer, it says if you're unable to use a node version manager, you can do it this way. But it seems like he's asking for similar language on the node page.
Yeah, and I think, if we find the issue, where is there an issue?
I
No,
guess the
there's,
title is just odd. Like globally installing npm should not be the recommended way for Mac and Linux. Like that's
yeah, globally, the way that I read it, globally is referring to
Node.
like the node installer, which installs it globally, which can have some weird access control issues. Whereas, and using NVM, it's still, I guess that, I see NVM still as like a global way. But it's just within NVM at that point. And then you still run npm install, npm at latest dash dash global. But then if you've used NVM up to that point, you're just opting into installing npm globally for the current node that you have from NVM. So they like the word global just has a lot of different context depending on which angle you're coming from.
The
Well,
loaded word.
yeah, and also like just again the title is maybe wrong because if he's speaking to node installation and not npm specifically, it's like yeah.
I guess you could chime into the issue and ask that question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I'll-
mean,
And
I can see, but like I pasted in the link to the recommendation, which is basically Jeffrey's suggestion is like update the website, and then like kind of what Mateo was saying is like you were saying, recommend something which is like install Node in a different way than it currently does. But I
yeah.
see your point about like maybe a question is like, was your original question like should not be recommended where?
Yeah.
Right?
I'll
Like where does
I'll
it
follow up.
recommend that? Right? Like because it's I would assume that our website recommends that.
No, I don't think it recommends anything to do with global installation of npm.
Right.
I think it's that the implementation globally installs npm.
Right. So well that basically is directly if basically if you follow the default instruction on the website and you end up with a global install,
Correct, but that's
then
not
I
a
get the
but
point,
that's
right?
not the yeah, then but that's like a outcome of node being installed globally.
But if we change the instructions to install node non-globally, that would then resolve the
Yeah,
issue.
like yeah, it would resolve the issue exactly. So if you said use NVM, then you end up with a um to Luke's point, still a globally installed npm, but like I guess the globally installed packages are scoped to the node version that's being managed by that version manager.
I mean, to the like the if you go to the downloads page, I mean, it does tell you like step by step how to do this. That's what I guess is very interesting because it does say you can choose, right? Like you can choose the particular version manager you want to use, like your NVM, FNM, Brew, which they even says in Brew, it even says like, hey, it's not a package manager. So like, please ensure it's already installed. Like don't like Brew itself. But like I yeah, that's a very loaded one because like we don't want to also say, oh, we recommend this one all the time. But we'll give you options. Like we'll give you what like various version managers out there that are accessible and how to install them. Like give them the instructions, like which is what the download page does. I don't know. That one's a tricky one. production nodes recommendation is just don't install the binary. Just do the version manager always, unless you know what you're doing.
What I think the suggestion is that the way it will describe to install will be like step one, install this version manager.
Yeah,
Step two,
that's
install
listed.
node. Use it to install node. Use it
Yep.
to install npm.
Yep. It's exactly like here's the output. It's hard to put inside here, but like
Right.
that'd be
But
ugly.
in the short term, it might actually say like install nvm so that you can manage, and then install something else. Install core pack, for example, to install your package manager, right? And then
Do we think this
Yeah.
is closed by because this was created back in February before the redesign launched. And with the redesign, obviously we give like, there's a ton of more options for recommendations of how not to install quote unquote globally. Do we think that this is already resolved?
I think like
I
if you
think
look at
so.
the
And
last
like in my
conversation,
opinion,
go ahead.
because we're actually giving you step by step like process on, how to install Node and with the version manager, our recommended ways of installing it. I mean, we're giving you also other ways of installing it, like how to install it, but the recommended is always the first option that's coming up when I go to that page.
Right, I think there wasn't agreement that the current ways doing the install was the way everybody would actually want to see it be done.
Mhm.
So that's where like, Jeffrey's mentioned, we need a PR. So once there's a PR on the website, we could see exactly what is going to be changed to, and then we can say like, okay, given that, do we say, is this covered or not?
We didn't you give a PR? It was number 5858598. That's the PR, the doc, which then Claudio follows up with I think is that a PR is an issue? No, it's a PR. Oh, for
Okay,
the doc
this
proposal.
one,
But then Claudio has another one down below that's linked in that same thread where it was in the Node.js org. It's number 66720.
Mhm.
The package managers as default redirects some more of that, like Darcy was saying, the site redesign, like that right there.
Mhm.
I think covers
Yeah, okay, so
what we're
maybe
all
that one.
talking about. Yeah, like saying
Okay,
that
but there's a
that whole
specific
download
comment
section
that says
redesign.
this is good improvements, but it doesn't cover 591.
On that PR or in the
Yeah,
same issue.
on 6720,
Oh, really? It doesn't
Jeffrey's
cover
comment is
591.
that this specifically doesn't cover that.
Sorry, 6720 in which
Well, it's
project?
in the Node.js, the Node.js.org
Yeah, here, I'll paste the link.
repo.
Oh,
There you
thanks.
go.
Thanks.
Oh, I see. Here's I think I know which comment you're specifically. I'll post that one here too. Copy link. The specific comment that I think you're talking about from Jeffrey.
Yeah. So yeah, if we had Jeffrey, we could maybe get an idea of what I don't know if he was planning
Yeah.
to create that PR or what like in the one I linked, that, or sorry, that page I linked, which landed. I think it's just a general concept though, right? Like, so the link, right? So like, So it says their default recommendation should be targeting our default set of users, therefore should recommend installing via one or more tools to make it easy to manage the runtime and package manager per project. So, so like the idea I think was that we could come up with a set of instructions for the website, which may not be optimal because like we don't have a tool doing it for us, but it would be like, if you want to manage your node version per project, follow these steps, think, 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 think. Now you've installed Node, you've installed your package manager, and it's per project. The certainly as part of that, like looking at some of the existing tools, like understanding and saying, well, this tool just already does that. Maybe we just put that into the website right off. But the suggestion was like, if we can't do that, we should just put in something which is like manual steps, and maybe it's 2 or 3 steps versus 1. But like as a starting point, it gets you into a better state than just a global install, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think I do like the second part of the comment that Jeff made there, where he goes, I think part of the confusion might be stemming from the fact that we're using the term package manager to refer to 2 different things. The system package manager, like Homebrew or Choco, and the app dependency package manager, like NPM. Is talking about how system package managers, such as Homebrew, install NPM so that NPM needs administrator rights to run when NPM shouldn't need sudo. I think that comment kind of narrows it down a bit, what the 591 is specifically talking about.
Right.
It's looking more so at how system managers like Brew and Choco install Node and NPM. Well, Node, but also subsequently NPM, the package manager. But that's
or something else, or like it doesn't have to be like one of the operating system type managers, but like some tool. That's why like I had this discussion with him for quite a while where it says installing via one or more tools. Like we don't know what those tools are, but they're not Node, and I didn't want to use the package manager because that's where you get into the confusion, right? Like, are you managing NPM packages? Are you managing system packages? Are you managing both? But a tool that will like basically install the bootstrap components for you, whatever those happen to be. And there were some comments along the way, well, like our Windows installer is good. Well, we can have that discussion, like maybe that's okay, right? But like I think some people would say, oh, we've had problems with that, so they're not ideal either. And they probably do a global install, which is not what we want. And
nope. Hear you.
I think just like looking at the problem, it's that some users end up in a state where they haven't permissioned the binaries properly, right? So like I feel like all we should be focused on is like if you end up in this state, here's a helpful, like we can recommend how to get out of the state.
well, there's a whole pile of things this is trying to address, right? Like this is also trying to address people's concerns over one package manager being easy to use and other packages not being easy to use, right? Like by having a top level recommendation that says like, here's the recommended way to install, and that includes something which will easily get you to whatever version of Node, whatever package manager you want. That also addresses that. So it's like this whole mix of things versus just trying to help people get out of bad installs.
Well,
yeah,
but I feel like we've already like opened up the can of worms in the website redesign to allow for multiple ways to install Node, right? Like, so you choose the drop down, your choice. If you see your choice or something, you click on it and you're like, oh yeah, I already have Homebrew, I already have Chocolatey. Like, oh, give me the steps to install Node.
But I think the assertion is we should make it so that that doesn't like, that's where I think Mateo was coming from in the first place is the defaults will often get you into somewhere that we don't think you should be in. And therefore, while we can give you the options to choose whichever way you want, the default, not without making a choice to override it, you should get something better than you do today.
Right.
And so it wouldn't necessarily be removing all those, but like ordering them. And you know, the from all the discussions, like nobody's happy. There isn't universal happiness with any one of the existing ones. So trying to write out a default that covers all those different concerns, like, hey, you can get any package manager, and hey, you can also manage your versions of Node, and they're not global, and you know,
Yeah,
any
feels like
set of instructions.
instead of recommending something net new or removing the existing ones, adding the stipulation to the installation instructions using the installer or something else that you might want to run XYZ commands to re-permission on your system, like the installed uh, binary, then I feel like is like a helpful, instead of me having to go Google for it as a newbie and come to that Stack Overflow, is that not just become part of the instructions for those defaults?
I think that's an added value, but that's a little bit tangential to what's driving what the
Sure. Yeah, it can be exactly
the
like you're
original
saying.
intent was. But
Yeah,
I agree, that's useful. Like basically saying, if you do happen to install this way, you might run into this, and here's a fix. That's really that. And
yeah,
that
like I feel
you
like
could just PR in today, right?
exactly like incremental, instead of trying to find like panaceas, like incremental improvements, right, to the existing workflows that we've already got. That's kind of, yeah. And we could, like you
Yeah,
said, we could PR that today.
makes sense.
By the way, that was not me raising my hand to make that PR happen.
Yeah, right. So yeah.
Um,
So I think the next
This is why
actual,
Darcy
like
doesn't have his camera on.
the next step where I think there's a volunteer is I was thinking Jeffrey was likely going to like try and come up with a PR or work with uh work with, and this is where my mental block is going to get me. Um anyway, here, where is it? Oh, with Claudio. I think Jeffrey was going to work with Claudio on some of that, on like the PR to what was documented in that doc. Like that's a concrete next step. That doesn't mean like if somebody wanted to PR in like some fixes, like here's how you fix things for the other ones. I think that would be welcome, but as an alternative, like as a different work stream kind of thing. Anything else people want to add to that one before we move to the next issue? The next one is create a doc on how to support ESM and Common Jest. Well, Luke was doing some research, and I think he discovered that there's already documentation on the Node website, or the like in the Node documentation, which covers a lot of this ground. So I think we should probably go back and read that, and then possibly next time discuss whether we think it's like, well, okay, that actually already covers everything we think we need, or not. Does it actually
That's,
get me? I don't know if the link is
it,
going to the
boun-
right.
it bounces you around, but if you scroll up just a smidge, you'll run into the actual. I think the docs page a tag is off, or there's a duplicate
Yeah, it must
href
be
or
a,
a anchor tag somewhere. It's pretty close. I think I was reading through it the other day. And I know it offers like, that's what I was looking for. I just want to see if it offered some translation tools, because like I know, obviously, like in terms of, I was working with Babel trying to do dual package the other day, and it wasn't as cooperative, or I can't remember what, but yeah, that's helpful if we can offer like recommended tooling and how to do the two transpilation type items. Oh, God dang it. No, sorry. It takes me all the way down. I'm like, this href is driving me nuts. There it is. I'm back here again. But it's pretty informative. I mean, most of it is just making sure you transpile everything out to each file's specific, whether it's package, the path name, or like .mjs, .cjs. It's kind of like what I've been approaching internally at our company, how to handle it.
Like, is it just that it should be like it's pretty dense? Like, should it just not be maybe just a separate page to make it easier, like more
I
discoverable?
I do think it might be worthwhile moving it to a separate page, in my opinion, because it is this whole page is very dense, and like you're saying, there's an a tag issue. It might make sense to make it all part of its own guide sort of thing in the doc site versus it being just a footnote on the documentation site.
Do
Like
we
if
have
anything, you could
guides?
even make it a you could even I don't know, it's a good point. Like there are some guides, when I say guides, I quotation that because if you go to the learn or there's a site, you have like this simple like copy clipboard guide, but then there is a learn section we have in here that talks about Node itself. But I could easily see dual publishing being a footnote or like a page item in here, even though I know it's specifically talking about um, more of the inner workings of Node. I can There's a talk about modules, how to publish a Node API package. I feel like it probably could fit into the modules section. That whole little section. Here, I'll
So
put a
under
link to the
the,
what.
where is this? Where is that? That's under the website under doc?
So if you go to learn, and it'll take you to like a getting started. If you scroll down, there's a module section.
Right, okay.
I can easily see this fitting under that in the learn section.
Right, okay, yeah.
It just seemed buried in the API docs today,
Hmm?
which is why I think we were all like, this feels underdocumented, like doing,
Yep.
yeah.
And there's specifically in the learn portion of that literally tells you how to publish a Node API package. This link right here. So either it could be extended upon as this Node API version, or we could be a separate item inside of that module section. I think it makes sense, my opinion.
Yeah, okay, so the proposal might be add to, so we bet no, won't necessarily need more content, but maybe
Yeah, the
I just
content
to
seems
be moved
valid.
and a link referencing the learn
Yes.
doc.
Like you could easily keep that dual like the snippet about it and but just make a link to it to the learn portion of the website. And you're just take a bunch of all that whole section and put it
Yeah,
in
the
that
whole
learn.
different approaches, like what?
Mm-hmm.
Like why do I need approaches in my API docs? Like that's definitely a more like
That's
guidance.
a exactly.
Yeah.
When
I
I
was
was reading that, I think I read that just right before this meeting. And I was like, wait a second, this doesn't need to be in here.
okay, so that I can see, yeah. So maybe like Luke had said, a while back he volunteered to put something together and then he was starting to look at some, it's like, oh, wait a sec, there's already some good content. So, but maybe based on our discussion, it could be like, well, then the action item on this is really to see if we can move some of the content into the learn or end up with a learn that either duplicates, replaces, or whatever the content that's there. That does make
Yep.
sense to me.
As long as it's more searchable, like we said, discoverable. Like if we're doing a search on the web for like dual ESM and Node.js's learn page comes up, it's like one of the top SEO pages or whatever. Like I think that's like the stretchier goal, but like just getting it out of there is like the main goal. Because then you're not having to like when you do a search, you're finding all these stack overflows and all these other
Yeah.
like things that could be old or outdated, whereas this is straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak.
Okay. Okay, so So I think next step would be PRing in our learn section. And possibly removing content from the API docs. Okay. That's a good concrete next step. I can let Luke know that we discussed that and see if he wants to pick that up. The status statement next step for PKG create. I don't know if anybody has any context or updates on that.
I still have do I still have a PR open, I wonder? I know I did some work in there. PKG.js.
Was Ethan taking over this from you, or was this?
Wasn't taking ownership, but more of a collaborative effort in conjunction to the package meta stuff. To the package meta interop stuff. I know we're still in discovery and research phase. Might that
I
take me
think
to-
Wes had done a little something too, although the last comment there is a year ago, so.
Let me see. So my PR, nope, it got merged. So we are now in a full monorepo state for create PKG. So we are going to start moving in a lot of the or some of the similar tooling around create PKG into that. That was the last thing we discussed. But in terms of the interop meta meeting where we're doing the defining the research, I think that's taking the precedence at this moment. Which I know I saw Ethan saying he's not going to be able to make it, so we'll see if that continues today. Darcy, are you going to be there? Or?
Yeah, I'll show up quickly. The big thing there is I guess the conversation about dev engines. So
That's still ongoing. Yeah.
I mean,
So that
I don't still don't
I
agree with it, but yeah.
so quotes there for you, Darcy, because I know what you
Well, no,
mean.
no,
I'm
yeah. There's been like some social kick up again about the package manager field. So like there's more people, yeah. I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like there's more adoption for a thing that is so close to it. It's like seems like it's duplicating efforts, and then it doesn't really matter if the package managers implement support for it because really that field is meant to be used by another tool, like we were talking about before. So it just
that's why, and that's why I think we should. I wish Ethan had more time, or even if I had more time, to dedicate to more of the interop research, so we can obviously obfuscate like what's important to the package JSON and what's specific to a tool, right? Like,
well, yeah, we just have the wrong tooling authors in the group. So it's like actually you want Volta and FNM and ASDF and MVM folks at the table. That's actually who you want. And in most cases, I don't think any of them or many of them don't look or want to read package JSON. They have their own set. They have their own like INI file or config file. So but yeah, on this specifically, I know we did have, just to move things forward on the crate PKG side, we did have an open issue for monorepo as a chore. So I'm not sure if you can close that if it's merged now.
yeah,
So
I'll go find it if it's out there and get them closed up so we don't have to deal with it anymore. Oh, wait, I found it. Hooray!
yeah, it's the number 16. So I would say ask for forgiveness and just close it. So instead of asking for permission, because I'd rather just see some activity on that repo for sure.
Yep, absolutely agree. I will do that. Thank you, sir.
Okay, we're pretty much 1 minute left. Anything else we should discuss before we close out?
Small group, wondering if there's stuff that others can, or if we're, how do we outreach? Reach out to people, tell them that this group is still getting together, I guess.
Yeah, and I
Good
guess
question.
at one point there was the question of like whether it would be superseded by the package interop meeting as well. I don't
Like
know
a
how that's
subset of
going.
that may make sense, yeah.
Yeah, but isn't the package interrupt is we're focused, I think it's more focused surrounding just the single package spec JSON more so than the entirety of the package, right? Like when we think of package maintenance, we're thinking of the entirety of the package, not just that one single file.
I thought there was
At
a
least
lot
in
of
this
energy
working
a
group.
couple, yeah, like a couple of years ago when Michael, you pushed forward the supports spec
Hmm.
and we're
Yeah.
speaking to how we and even it's in our charter how we support ecosystem
Yep.
packages like top level ecosystem packages, like using that mindset of can we continue to support those projects or like what's our strategy look like? And I think that starts with having enough people here to have that conversation to be like, how can we
Right.
support a maintainer that looks like they're burned out and it wants to transfer this to, we can't just keep relying on Jordan Harband to be there to pick up when a maintainer is dropping out of the ecosystem. So,
Yeah, I can't have that bus factor.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. Like on that one, I think there's like a proposal that Ulysses and I put together that we were waiting to get some feedback from the foundation on that front, but like this is still a good place to discuss those kinds of things. So
like,
I think
yeah.
reinvigorating the working group would be what you're suggesting as we
Exactly. And even if like an outcome is somehow we work with like Sentry and we help recommend like the packages that they should um support or sponsor this year and somehow get like recognition for working with them and giving them a list of people they should go fund and somehow like finding these different ways to like make sustainability a part of what we try to strive for, I think is a good yeah.
Okay, well, maybe if you can open an issue to say and tag it for the agenda, that'll get it on the agenda as a
Sure.
thing to do. And I got to drop because I have another meeting. So
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
thanks for everybody's time, and we'll see everybody next time. Bye.